Deliberately deceive Americans about the Benghazi attack. Well, today, House Speaker John Boehner announced a special committee is being formed to investigate. The move comes days after newly released emails revealed a White House aide advisor, Susan Rice, to tell the world that protests due to a video led to the deaths of 4 Americans that night. Now, all the while, Democrats have been dismissing the efforts to get answers.
Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. Why aren't we talking about something else?
What difference at this point does it make?
Dude, this was like 2 years ago. We're still talking about the most mundane
it is the thing
process
that everybody is talking about.
And President Obama is part of that chorus.
Your detractors believe that you did not tell the world it was a terror attack because your campaign didn't want that out.
Bill, think
That's
about
what they believe.
And they believe it because folks like you are telling them that.
Once again, finger pointing at someone else, not accepting the responsibility, Eric.
Dude, let me tell you something. I'm going to try and start every sentence with dude. So, dude, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. Can you imagine the parents or the family of the people who died, the 4 great Americans who died at Benghazi? It's disgusting that that kid could do that. But it's a culture. Look at Jay Carney. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Look at this guy who's national security spokesperson. They have this attitude like, why are you bothering us? Why are you annoying us with these silly questions? Benghazi's over. At this point, what difference does it make? It matters not so much because anything's going to change. It matters because they lied about it and they covered up about it. And if they were willing to do it for Benghazi, they're willing to do it for the IRS, and they might be willing to do it for something else next.
Dana, communications nightmare is not even doing this whole fiasco justice.
It does. If it was a screenplay for the show Veep, which I really like, you would actually think that it would make perfect sense. One of the things about this part where he says "dude," that was 2 years ago, is that knowledge of the timeline is absolutely critical because that actually is the story. The question is who at the beginning pushed the video. That was what everybody's been trying to get to the bottom of. The White House, for some reason, decided to redact the document that has been in question this week, redacted it many months ago when they gave it to the committee. That was in defiance of the subpoena, and I think that's why Speaker Boehner, who had said to everybody, if there is something specific that would lead to a successful conclusion of a select committee, then that's when I will finally do it. So I think that's been fairly methodical and cautious, and I think the White House would probably just be better off if just letting it all out there all at once, because I think that this will just continue, because if that document was redacted, my gut tells me there's probably many more that were also.
I think that's a safe bet to just say your gut tells you there's probably more that's redacted. Why do you have to have Judicial Watch go on this hunt to try and find the truth? Yeah. This is America. We're not supposed to be playing games. This is supposed to be the government that was going to come in and change the White House and change the way things were done in D.C. We're going to be transparent. Oh, little do they know, transparent as cement, Greg.
Exactly. They're what are you going to say? If there's one word that sums up this administration, it will always be dude. Because it's not a White House, it's a frat house. The low point in our culture, we have a poster boy for ambivalent beta males who are raised on a diet of identity politics and organic kale. The only spine he has is a worn-out copy of Dreams of My Father. And a Slinky has more backbone. And you have these White House hacks that are basically covering more tracks than the Long Island Railroad, and they're using this as a strategy. But basically what they're saying is it's uncool to ask questions. It's take a chill pill. That is the only defense they have. You know what he says? He defended himself. He said that he wasn't demeaning what happened 2 years ago. He was saying that if you ask anybody about what they wrote 2 years ago, an email, it's like, dude, that was 2 years ago. How would I remember? But before he went on Bret Baier, he tweeted, we're talking about something, is this Throwback Thursday? We're talking about something that's 2 years ago. So he lied again. He actually was making fun of the idea, and now he's pretending that he didn't. If they did a movie about Benghazi, it would be, dude, where's my president?
Bob.
Let me sort of shake this up a little bit here.
Thank you.
Because you're not going to like it much. But let's begin with the obvious here. Did somebody somewhere decided that it would be in the best interest of the presidential campaign to not have this thing out the way it was and that the talking points should be different? Yes. Okay, I agree with that.
Okay.
Did it originate with this kid in the White House? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it did with somebody else. Did they change the CIA talking points? Maybe, maybe not. In the end, there are 225 women missing in Nigeria, little girls. There are endless numbers of friendly fire incidents we haven't looked at. Wait a second. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Did you jump to the D block?
No, I didn't. Just let me finish. Okay. And let me finish by saying what I think.
Sure.
Hillary Clinton says, we know Islamic radicals killed these people. What difference does it make anymore?
Because they covered it up, Bob.
So what?
So they'll do it again.
What administration don't you think covers things up? Every administration covers things up.
Okay, all right. However, should they be able to cover it up just because it makes the president look bad?
Who cares?
Everyone cares. Half the American people care.
Well, not everyone. No, they don't.
Half the American people
out in America today, they are not sitting there saying, gee, I wonder what happened in Benghazi.
Let's put it this way. If it were a Republican president and they lied and they caught him lying, you would be losing your mind every single day.
Things I would go after. Go after the FBI. Go after all the other things you're talking about here. But this is, we've overkilled this. The Republicans are using this purely and simply for political reasons. Not that they don't care about 4 people being dead. But do you think they'd have this committee if it was for the fact it was for politics?
But wait a second. If you were admitting that this was used in order to win an election, then that's...
It didn't win an election. It was a piece of winning an election.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut that too thin. It was part of him winning.
Okay, it was
the flour in the batter.
If you look at incumbent White Houses, they're going to go out of their way to avoid controversy that hurt a president.
Can I throw one more thing out here, Bob? You know what else dude said last night that no one had ever said in 20 months?
What?
He said President Obama was not in the Situation Room. We were all wondering, was he in the Situation Room, talking to Leon Panetta, talking to the Secretary of State? And it turns out...
I
want to play it. Exactly what you're saying.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go.
Was the president in the Situation Room?
No.
Where was the president?
In the White House.
He wasn't in the Situation Room.
At what point in the evening? I mean, he was constantly...
Any point in the evening.
You know, it's well known that when the attack was first briefed to him, it was in the Oval Office, and he was updated constantly.
When Hillary Clinton talks to him by phone at 10 p.m., he's where?
I don't know. I don't have a tracking device on him in the residence.
But you were in the Situation Room when he wasn't there.
House. Yes, I was in the White House.
And the president was not in the Situation Room?
Not in the room I was in.
I love this guy. He makes the pajama boy look like the Terminator.
How many times does the president or other people go into a situation room in the White House? I've been there. About every day something's going on. There are critical issues going on around the country and around the world that we need to deal with.
Bigger than a consulate under attack.
A two-year-old attack. There were 19
Was there anything bigger than a consulate under attack?
I want to get Dana in here. No. Why does the messaging seem to be all over the place? It's like my last weekend Twister thing where I had an elbow there and a leg there and a shoe in the corner. Why?
Well, I think it's partly because they redacted the information and then it came out through a different means. And so they look like they were covering up a cover-up, which if you agree that they made up the story about the video in order to protect their politics in the situation, not that it would have made them, I think President Obama was going to win the election anyway, regardless of this. But let's just say that they were worried enough that they came up with this story. So they used politics to cover up a policy failure, which they said was the goal, to make sure there was not a cover-up. But it gets to that larger question, then, of character and judgment, systemically misleading the American people. And then the question being, the larger question now is not about necessarily the talking points, because I think to me, it's clear. We know that the White House pushed it, and somebody was at the very top doing it. Then the question becomes, why has no one been arrested? No one's been droned. There has been no counterattack from the United States on this attack, and that becomes the larger issue that if everybody wants to get to that, that's what then the Select Committee can try to get to the bottom of.
What do you think the policy failure was?
Well, they were more worried about the policy failure.
They were. I don't understand why they were so worried about it.
Okay, well then, why don't we find out?
Well, the policy failure was saying that a threat didn't exist when it existed, and then they attempted to cover that up.
And possibly not sending troops.
But what about a response to it? What about bringing the people to justice where they know where they are and they're not doing that either?
You think they're not doing that because they just don't want to do it?
Where are they, Bob? I want to see them.
Why do you think they're not doing it?
Because I think they're in denial about the whole situation.
Oh, come
to be
on.
honest,
I think there's the bigger policy failure also is after the removal of Gaddafi in Libya, what was the follow-up? In addition to that, on Egypt, I'm not making that up. That's actually in the document that they provide to Susan Rice to prepare her for the Sunday show.
That's the background.
There it is. Here's the problem. Hillary Clinton was the one who was supposed to, A, testify, and then B, go on those talk shows and be asked the question, why did you what's the reason for the terror attack? And she was the one who would have had to have said, well, it was the video that caused the attack. They knew she couldn't do that because she was going to run in 2016, and they could not throw her under the bus at that point. So she hits her head. She has to spend 2 weeks out of commission, can't testify, can't go on the talk shows, and they send Susan Rice to do her dirty work, and she takes the bullets.
She had said then after that, the video, she already said that.
Because then that's the point, Bob, that they were already too far gone.
Yeah, but
That then they had to cover it up, and it gets to the question of who pushed the video.
And they had to sacrifice
here's why you got to care.
I care.
Because do you think Russia or China is quaking in their boots when they see this collection of Ferris Buellers running this country?
Correct.
These underweight beta male failures. It's time for the adults, for some reason, are on a Carnival cruise and the house is being trashed. It's time to come home from the vacation in 2016. Let the adults back into the house and clean this up.
Here's who
Leon Panetta was not a
family members
child.
care.
A lot of these people are very senior and very good people. And to blankly indict an administration and call them the names you want to call Obama and say that's the whole administration is frankly bull.
You know what? You know who cares about the people? Whoever runs against Hillary Rodham Clinton for president in 2016 cares.
You put your finger on it because it's politics. It's pure politics.
Because she
used it as politics to win. So you can use Benghazi as politics.
If you're
a
Democrat,
bury it. You can help. The press helps you to bury this tragedy, and you can do that.
Just admit it's politics. I admit it was politics.
So you're saying because we think it's bad, that's also politics.
I'm saying that with this special committee, the Select Committee is pure politics. And so I've said the other. It was politics. None of you are willing to say that.
So Bob, if it's under the guise of it's politics, you can do anything. You can cover up murders. You can cover up knowledge. You can hide the truth. You can say it's the video when we know it's terrorism.
Well, you think
as long as you cover it up, it's like those idiots, Bill Maher and them, hiding behind comedy.
How many things do you think get covered up because of politics?
I don't know.
In this administration, a lot of other administrations.
By the way, we knew all this 2 years ago, but they didn't want to be forthcoming with the truth of the details. They knew that it was an act of terrorism. They knew it wasn't a video. They knew it was the work of Ansar al-Sharia, and instead they let us spin around like buffoons, little twister tops in the corner. That's not a good idea on either side to do, Bob.
I want to ask
but
you,
your team did it.
We're leading this show with this, and we've been leading it. We've been sticking with it, and I'm telling the American people could give a damn about it.
All right, well, let's see. I think the American people do care. I'm happy to stay on this horse and ride it.
Show me some data,
Next,
and I'll believe it.
Does the press need to get tougher on the administration? Yes. One former White House press corps veteran thinks so. You see her?
No, that's not me. I'm the second one.
Okay. And one former White House press secretary, Dana Perino. She's everyone. We only have one person to play this role. She's going to tell you about it coming up. You can't make it up.